CCIA and Ed Black as an individual leader and professional have shaped policy in so many ways for this country. The ability to not just drive for what you want, but to understand what the other guy wants and finding the intersection points where public interest and private interest align, and then working for the art of the possible, of how to take that intersection point of interests and bring them to fruition through policy, through legislation, sometimes through court cases. That takes critical thinking, strategic analysis, and very often political courage.
Ed's a David person, not a Goliath person. And he likes that fight. He was sort of born for that kind of fight. It was always a fight for good, that openness and competition brought benefit to everybody, and the importance of innovation, and that, you know, your son or my daughters, because the internet is the way it is, and Ed helped us keep it that way, they could come up with something and put it online and reach the world.
Ed was very true to his principles. There wasn't a lot of compromise when it came to doing the right thing, particularly from a policy perspective. There was times that I had encouraged Ed not to lead on a policy issue. Ed, took my input and then said, this is something we need to do. It's the right thing for the industry, and we'll figure it out. Ed was very committed to staying true to our mission statement and competition. It was always great to learn policy from somebody who, always put policy considerations front and center of any decision that we were making.
Back in the 1970s, when I was a senior executive at the Federal Trade Commission and we were being politically challenged, the CIA, very young at the time, was the only important trade association that actually stood up in public to support the Federal Trade Commission's antitrust authority. Years later, when I founded the American Antitrust Institute, it was natural that I would go to Ed Black and that Ed would become an advisory board member. Ed's passionate advocacy for competition policy within a democratic polity is something that will long be remembered and surely be missed.
It's a great pleasure to be able to offer my congratulations to Ed Black on a remarkable career, one that's contributed an enormous amount to our digital progress over many, many decades. But especially I want to thank Ed for his service in connection with activities at the State Department. His service as the chair of the Advisory Committee on International Communications and Information Policy was a terrific contribution. And later on, when I had the honor of serving at the State Department, Ed was a very reliable partner for all things involving internet freedom, freedom of expression, freedom with respect to digital trade. So Ed, it's been a wonderful career. I thank you very much for the contributions you've made.
Ed has been at this 30 years. Ed actually helped lead the policy discussions to keep up with the technology changes. And he has been my partner on some of the huge fights that we had over the years, including defeating SOPA, fighting for net neutrality. And, I've worked with Ed my entire time in Congress to defend innovation in our country for greater prosperity for all of this. To Ed's credit, he never got left behind as the technology marched ahead. He's been a key figure in the development of policy in the tech field for all these years.
Ed, it's great to celebrate the incredible impact you've had at CCIA. You've been one of Washington's leading advocates for innovation and a voice for sensible technology policy. You've pushed policymakers to make it clear rules while making sure that the concerns of the present don't foreclose the incredible possibilities of the future. You've been one of the tech industry's most effective strategists and spokespeople in the corridors of power, bringing a relentless approach to advocacy. And on a personal level, you've been a tremendous role model for what it means to lead, grow, and adapt an organization to changing times.
I started my career in DC, working directly with Ed right outside his office. I was 21 years old at a time when young folks in DC were switching jobs quite frequently. I stayed 12 years, learned just about everything I knew from DC in politics and policy and tech and antitrust from working with Ed. It's obviously a hugely formative aspect of my career. So couldn't think of a better person to learn the tech policy ropes, to learn the antitrust policy ropes, to learn the DC ropes from Ed. I wouldn't trade that experience for the world.
Thank you for being a guide and a mentor to me and to so many others. It's been a great ride, and I hope that we can all make him proud.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your leadership, Ed.
Ed, you're more than a leader, and an extraordinary one, and you are more than a shaper of industrial history and public policy history. You're a beloved and respected personal friend. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being the heartfelt friend that you are and have been. Thank you for the adventures and the successes and the partnership. But thank you for the fun.